Ragnar was a pathetic and weak loser who couldn't even protect his loved ones that died right in front of his eyes. However, after he awakened his true power, he became the strongest dragon hunter in existence, nicknamed the Reaper. In this world, dragons are the creatures that rule, and humans are just their prey. The story begins with an old man fighting a dragon. However, it was more of a massacre as he killed it with just the wave of his hand, but he still longed for more power. This was only a vision our MC was having in the middle of a fight with a fucking dragon. Thankfully, a pink-haired girl jumps in and saves Ragnar, who advises him to not sleep with his eyes open if he wants to be able to close them again. Her name is Leonia, a loli who's in love with our pedophile MC. Currently, there are only two ways to defeat a dragon, either by freezing their blood with a silver weapon, or exposing them to sunlight. After finishing their quest to kill some dragons, the duo head back to the guildhall situated in the city of Ronabera. The people seem to recognize Leo, as she's the hunter who's rumored to have killed 50 dragons, despite only being 12 years old. She is also the one with the highest kill count in the city, making her a prodigy. Even after being this strong, she still behaves like a kid, especially while eating. Suddenly, a man across the table mocks Ragnar for living off of Leo, but they don't recognize him. He's the number 2 that never gets any fame, Sykes Charluk. His parents were hoping for a protagonist son, but they were pranked with a side character. That's why they named him Psych! Even after that, he decides to talk smack to the protagonist. However, Leo steps up and asks him his reason for using his silver sword. Is it wealth, status, glory, or convincing his parents that he wasn't a mistake? What Leo desires is becoming the strongest. As the dragons are the strongest creatures, she'll hunt them down, even defeating their leader the dragon god to prove her strength. Or so she says, inviting people to join her on her journey. Nobody steps up except for Ragnar. After they leave the guildhall, Ragnar puts Leo to sleep and goes out to train. His goal isn't to become strong as he realizes his lack of talent, but to be useful to Leo before dying. Just then, the old man from his vision appears behind him, saying that Leo's going to be the one to die. Suddenly, he sees a glimpse of the future, where Ronabera is under attack by dragons. Like the old man said, Leo dies right in front of his eyes, making him scream in agony. After waking up from the vision in tears, he goes to buy meat with Leo, but is still thinking about what he saw. The next day, all the hunters gather around the quest board, the reason being that there weren't any quests to take. Ragnar and Leo rest outside the building, when he tells her that her hair have gotten longer so he need to cut them. It's pretty normal until you add the fact that they're both buck naked. Ragnar again recalls the death Leo, even in his sleep. The next day, Leo trains vigorously, while the hunters discuss the reasons for the lack of quests. It was because the dragons were migrating towards the east, to the city of Donapieru. Quite surprisingly, that city hadn't been attacked for more than a decade. Leo wants to visit a pastry shop in that city named Silver Chick, but Ragnar is still thinking about his dream. Leo looks at his bruised hands and baggy eyes, deducing that he's been training harder than usual. She asks him the reason for overworking himself, but he doesn't tell her about the dream. Instead, he tells her that he wants to be of help to her. We then see a flashback of the first time Leo met Ragnar. He was getting his ass beat by Sykes and crew. After seeing Ragnar, Leo knew that he had potential, so she decided to team up with him. However, Ragnar was afraid as he had a special link with the dragons which attracted them towards him, leading to the death of his parents and relatives. Despite knowing that, Leo still wanted to hunt with him. Suddenly, a dragon appears in front of them because of Ragnar, but Leo easily kills it, proving that she won't die. Back to the present, the dragons attacked and destroyed Donapieru. A quest was set up to kill all the dragons responsible. However, Ragnar suddenly feels an aura that makes him tremor in fear. When they go out to see what it was, they find the city under attack by a horde of dragons. Scared, Ragnar tells Leo to run away with him or she'd die. Leo holds his hand and smiles, assuring him that she won't die, and sets off to fight. The humans were trying to defend against the dragons, but they being pushed back. Suddenly, someone seemed to be walking out the fire covered in blood. The hunters check to see if he's alright, however, the blood transforms into spears and kills the hunters. Meanwhile, Ragnar sees the flames coming from the guy and follows them, only to recognize his spears as the ones who killed Leo in the vision. That human-like dragon was a superior dragon who was about to kill Sykes, but Ragnar attacks him. However, his blade shatters and he gets blown away by the dragon's flames, but survives because of the plot armor. Leo sees him falling into the river and tells Sykes to help him. She jumps down to the ground, ready to fight the dragon boss. While sinking in the river, Ragna starts to see all the vision of the future after Leo dies. He becomes a madman, only breathing for revenge. Through his journey he makes comrades, but eventually loses them. After training his body to its absolute limits, he reaches a new level of strength, but at that point, all he wanted was to die, but he didn't. The man he saw earlier was none other than his future self, who is disgusted by the current Ragna. The reason was because he didn't become strongest in order to protect the ones he loved. His future self was strong enough to protect, but by that time, there was nothing left for him that he could protect. Ragna steps up, telling his future self to give him his power in order to protect the ones that he loves. Future Ragna pushes him and stabs him with his sword, transferring him his power. However, it makes his body scream in agony. For him to get the powers of his future self, he had to pay a price in exchange, but he didn't care what it was. Meanwhile, Leo was getting tired while the dragon guy hadn't even moved an inch. She asks him if he's the dragon god, but it makes him angry as he considers himself lowly in front of them. His name is Grimwelt, the weakest member of the Blood of the Wing, which is similar to the 12 moons from Demon Slayer. The reason that the dragons attacked the kingdom is because their dragon god used to like the pastries of a shop in Donapieru. However, that shop was recently robbed and went out of business, even though the superior dragons were protecting that city. This saddened their god, who ordered them to destroy the kingdom. Dimwit was about to kill Leo, when he feels someone strong approaching. It was obviously our MC, walking smoothly and looking intimidating. He kills the dragons in his path with just the touch of his hand and suddenly appears before Dimwit. Just by being close to Ragna, Dimwit starts to freeze. He feels the same amount of pressure from him than the 3 dragon monarchs, the ones chosen by the dragon god to be rulers of their bloodlines. However, he refuses to believe it and transforms into a dragon. After bragging about his great dragon form, he is frozen with one word from Ragna and killed by the other. The pressure from his voice shatters all the frozen dragons in the area, saving the day. When he reverts back to his original form, he's barely able to breathe. However, when he sees Leo, he runs towards her and hugs her while crying in her arms. Meanwhile, we see Ragna's future self dying while standing. In front of him is a red-haired girl who says that the current Ragna won't be able to live long either, but he was still smiling despite knowing that. The girl can only hope that their past selves create a world where dragons don't exist. Unfortunately, 7 cities were attacked by the superior dragons, but only one managed to survive. It was the same day the Reaper of Dragons was born. The next day after all the dragons were killed in the city, Ragna cries as he's happy that Leo's alive. Sykes suddenly appears from behind and calls Ragna a freak. Leo asks why he's here, but they actually in his house. He asks Ragna what he plans on doing, and he replies by advising to leave the country. The reason was because the dragons were ordered by the dragon god to destroy the kingdom, so they'll be safe if they leave. In the middle of Ragna's explanation, Sykes interrupts him, asking if he's really the weak, talentless and stupid Ragna that he knew. However, instead of answering his question, he falls asleep. Leo thinks that he gained his power from rigorous training behind her back. In his sleep, he calls out Leo's name while tears come out of his eyes. Suddenly, the ground shakes and Leo checks to see what it was. The forest was moving towards them and attacking everyone in sight. Sykes warns everyone about the ambush, while Leo sets out to protect the city. Meanwhile, the redhead from before says that it's time for Ragna's path to cross with hers, letting their story begin.